Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com, along with Army Wrestling Head Assistant Coach Scott Green. Scott, how you doing today? I know you guys just finished up NCAAs about a week and a half ago. How are things right now in the off season for you and the staff?
It's going well. Obviously, off season is a relative term, right? We're fully into the recruiting process. We've got some really good 2026s coming to post this weekend that we're excited about, and you really kind of working through some off season training and just continuing to push the rock up the hill.
Awesome. And we'll get into the details of some of that stuff in a little bit, but I just want to go through a list of all the accolades of the Army wrestling team this year. I can only hit the high points because otherwise I'd be talking for the next hour. But just some stuff off the top of my head, really. Finishing the regular season ranked in the top 25, tied for third at the EIWAs, won the Southern Scuffle, beat Navy again, which is becoming a regular occurrence, which
Mhm.
when I was a cadet in the wrestling club, never would have thought that could have happened.
Yeah.
So really exciting there. In front of a record crowd at Crystal Arena. On top of that, Army had seven wrestlers qualify for NCAAs, which included two upsets of top 10 ranked wrestlers in the first round. Scott, can you summarize what made the 2025 Army wrestling team so special and so successful over the course of the season? It seems like, in the past, what we've seen, a lot of Army teams started the season really well and peaked and then kind of struggled to finish. It hasn't happened as much since Coach Ward has been there, but was kind of a common theme. But you guys seem to keep the intensity and momentum the entire season.
Yeah, I think it's a product of a lot of different factors, and there's definitely a good deal of talent in our room, and that helps. We've brought in some really highly regarded recruits and recruiting classes over the last few years, so having that depth has really kind of played in our favor in a couple different ways. One, in that, there's always somebody else to step in. If somebody is banged up or something else going on, we've proved that time and time again that our second guy is a top 25 in the country type
Yeah.
wrestler in a lot of different cases. And the other thing that does is it really pushes guys in the room and keeps them sharp. There's no drop off in January where you're just gonna kind of cruise to the conference tournament, to the Easterns. You're going to have to stay sharp and you're going to have to fend off that guy that's coming for your spot, right? So in the room competition really helps in that regard. I also think it's a good mesh and blend of coaching styles. We've got a lot of different coaches with a lot of different backgrounds. Coach Ward, 4 years at Oklahoma State. They were four-time NCAA champions when he was there. Coach Blyce coming in from Minnesota and some different coaching experiences. Coach Lamont, most recently Wisconsin, but also that Utah Valley flavor where he was an All-American. So you got a lot of times you see college wrestling staffs and they're just four different versions of the same guy, right? And they're in that job because they were good wrestlers. We have a
Right.
good, productive bunch of different philosophies that bring different ideas to it, based on their own competitive, kind of experiences, but also long-term coaching. So I think those two things kind of mesh together with just some good, tough, hard wrestling at the end of the year that we crave, that we value, that we want to see.
Yeah, so there was a lot of good stuff in there, Scott. Really appreciate that explanation, especially about the coaching staff and your different backgrounds. But there was something you highlighted in there that I just want to hover over for a second. You talked about the level of competition in the room. And I think the perfect example of that was, you had Lucas Stoddard, who, by the way, is a EIWA scholar athlete, which
Yep.
is pretty impressive. But Lucas, right, was a medalist in the U23 Worlds last year in the
Fifth
offseason.
place, yeah. Fifth
So,
place in
and
October, yeah.
and Brady Colbert ends up going to the postseason,
Mhm.
EIWAs and NCAAs. So just talk about that battle at heavyweight a little bit and maybe some of the other weight classes where you have two guys who are really that tight, and not only tight, it's one thing to have two guys who are tight if they're not
Sure.
competitive, but Lucas could have gone to the postseason and done really well, I'm sure,
Yep.
just like
Mhm.
Brady did. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with they're not just tight, but they're both super high level guys, right? I think when I got here and in the past and on every team, there's roster battles, right? But a lot of times, the old saying in the NFL, if you have a quarterback battle, you probably don't have a good
You got
quarterback,
everything.
right? And that was the case, and that is the case a lot of times. You got two good 49 pounders, but neither one of them is going to qualify for the NCAA tournament. That's not the case here, and we proved it at heavyweight. A tough battle all year. Both guys getting great matches. And in the end, I think just kind of the healthier guy, who's just wrestling a little bit better at the time, wound up to go and it gets that big upset in the first round of the NCAAs. So we know what we got there. We got a couple other pretty good heavyweights too. And Lucas is going to be down in Mexico in 2 weeks wrestling at the Pan Am Championships, right? So
Awesome.
by no means is that like decided for their careers. So we just know we got two guys who are the best of friends that are going to push each other the entire time that they're here. I think another great example is at 141 pounds. Rich Trainer and Braden Basil kind of going back and forth all year. Maybe one guy's got a little better results at the field against the field, but one guy's beaten the other guy a couple times. So all those things kind of factor into uh, the decision making process and who's getting the reps in. And that one we wound up, having an injury that made that decision less of a factor for us. But that was one that went back and forth all year. And a lot of times it comes down to who's wrestling the best in February as you lead into the postseason and who's the healthiest. So we're confident that our seconds at just about every weight class can compete at a high level. And those are just two examples of guys that proved it. Basil and Trainer both placed Southern Scuffle. Same thing at heavyweight, second and third at the Scuffle. So, these guys are going out to these big events and really kind of showing that they're a national caliber guy.
Awesome. And, you mentioned a lot of the guys already, and, obviously you lose some firsties like Dalton Harkins, but the team returns a lot of young guns, and recruiting has just continued to improve for y'all. And you have some really good talent, I think, up the hill that might be coming down as well.
Yep.
Really two questions around that. A, who are you really excited about seeing next year, and maybe what battles in the room are you excited about seeing? And then
Mhm.
number two, has the program been hurt at all by the portal?
Well, the first one's easy, no. Now the portal's still open for a couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
you know, uh, we'll see. But I think we're pretty confident. I've been here for 4 years, and there's really only been one guy that's transferred out for wrestling reasons, and it was completely understandable. In that situation, he was the same grade and behind Benny Pazook, so he couldn't go up, he
Okay.
couldn't go down. If he wanted to wrestle, he
Yeah.
had to go somewhere else,
He was
right?
stuck. Yep.
And other than that, guys that are here is something that we preach, something that we kind of make sure that they understand is you're going to graduate with the guys that you came in with, right? You're not going to bust your butt for 3 seasons and maybe senior year is finally your chance. And you look down and there's a transfer that's coming in for the last 3 months of the year that's going to take your spot. We don't deal with that at all. The first kind of thing that we stress with our guys is brotherhood and we don't just talk about it, we live it. You're seeing your picture, you're not just going to go over, shake hands, get acquainted with the guy because he's only been there for 2 months. It's someone that you've done 4 years with, right? So I don't think the portal is a factor for us, and I think we're proving that you can win without the portal at
Good.
a pretty high level. So we're kind of that anachronism, like that it's not exactly college athletics as a lot of people perceive them today, but maybe it's college athletics that the way that they were originally intended here. And I think
Right.
that's important. And a lot of people are drawn to that. Next year, it's kind of funny because we had seven qualifiers this year. We only lose Dalton out of that group. And then you factor in Braden and Lucas, who qualified the year before. So we have 8 returning qualifiers, guys who have been to the NCAA tournament. So we'll continue to see some battles at heavyweight. We've had some good guys emerge. 197 pounds. Reed Schroeder had a great freshman season. So we'll see if he can close the gap there with Wolfgang. A guy coming out of injury his freshman year, David Barrett, who we're really, really high on. He missed the whole season due to injury, so he's going to be in there battling. We'll see what happens in weights between 49 and 74, and if we're going to have some guys grow and shift around in that general area. But I think we're deep in there too, you know. So Cooper Haas, a really highly regarded freshman that got some really good reps and really good wins this year, is going to definitely stay to claim for one of those spots, and we'll just see how those things shake out.
Stuff. And talking a little more about, NIL in the portal, it's hit a lot of sports, right? At GBK, we primarily cover football. No
Sure.
sports probably been hit harder than football, but it's had a huge impact. I've been watching what's been going on since the tournament.
Yeah.
And just it just really seems to me, maybe I don't have the right perspective, but it seems to me that the halves, the three halves specifically, being Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, and I've nothing against any of those programs.
Sure.
Have met a lot of their coaches, have a ton of respect for them, but they just keep getting better and better at what seems like the expense of everyone else. I do have my own opinions around that, but what do you think these changes are going to do to the long-term sustainability of the sport and the competitiveness? And surprisingly, what we see going on, not only at Army Wrestling, but obviously the football team just had one of their best seasons ever. I
Sure.
just spoke with Joe Alberici yesterday about the lacrosse team.
Incredible. Yeah.
How does Army, you hit on it a little bit earlier around traditional college sports. And what I tell people all the time is, look, if you like college sports, you should be an Army fan
Yeah.
because they're actual student athletes. They're serving their country. They're doing all this stuff. They're everything that's right with college sports. You should totally be an Army fan. So,
Yeah.
kind of, how is that juxtaposition of like all this weird stuff's happening to the sport of wrestling, especially at the very high end level? But it's not really hitting Army. And how is Army getting better in this environment?
It's crazy, right? We were joking the other day in the office. We're working on scheduling for next year, and I'm talking to my peers at a bunch of different schools, and they're if they're really, really good, they're like, "Oh, this guy's leaving," or "Hey, this guy's calling us." And if they're kind of that next tier, they're worried about their best kids getting poached, and jumping in the portal. And I'm like, I have the best job in the world this week, right? I don't
Right,
have to worry about any
exactly.
of that stuff. We know who's coming back, and we know that there are still kids that are attracted to what we can provide. So I think there's a little bit of it where we're doing different jobs than some of those bigger schools. I think if you look back, over time, I'm not saying it's an exaggeration, but I think the team trophy, as long as we stick with an individual format, um, the people who are going to finish on the top of the podium as a team is kind of been restricted to the top five teams going all the way back, right?
Yeah,
So that's not anything new to us. Is the
right.
gap widening? Maybe a little bit, right? But you got DT out in Oklahoma State. He's shown he's going to be a presence. So maybe
Yeah.
that's gonna that top five is gonna even out a little bit. But we're doing a different job, right? And that's okay. There's different levels of success that our sport measures. So we're excited about that. And I'll tell you this too, like it's interesting. A lot of kids that I recruited that are just finishing up their freshman year are jumping in the portal. They didn't come to West Point, and they're calling
Hmm.
me, and they're like, "Oh man, is there anything we can do?" And so we're kind of looking at, hey, maybe there is. Let's
Could come in
figure
as a
out what
plebe.
the
It's happened
yeah,
before. It's
sure.
rare, but it has happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so with hey, listen, if there's going to be change over here and change over here, maybe that's a change that will attract some kids too. You go to a school, you think you're getting developed in your redshirt year, you're not the starter, and then all of a sudden, three more guys are coming in. Maybe you say, I should have picked stability. I should have picked brotherhood. I should have picked something where I knew, where I stood, and I didn't have to worry about that. So I think that is really kind of driving the success behind all the other programs here that are having success is that you come in and you're gonna graduate with the guys that you came in with. That there is 100% absolutely still a team aspect to sports, and I think that's more obvious in football or lax because they play as a team. But I think it's important in wrestling too. I think
Yep.
there's always going to be guys that it's going to be them first, and maybe they're the most successful guys in the country because of that. But we attract a kid who's understanding of the fact that there's something bigger than themselves involved in their sports participation. That's a value for them. That's important to them. And man, those guys make great second lieutenants too. So we're excited
Absolutely.
about our positioning. We really are. We think that we don't have to deal with a lot of the stuff that some of our peers have to deal with, and I think the product is showing that we can be successful here.
Absolutely. And, another key to your success has been the growth of the West Point Wrestling Club and the
Mhm.
RTC, where you guys have been able to bring in some Olympic level athletes and help boost the overall profile of the program, give athletes opportunities to compete that they wouldn't have otherwise. Talk a little bit about the club and the RTC and how it's vital to the success of the overall wrestling program at West Point.
And I think that's across the board. Your RTC is going to be those two things are going to be linked, right? Your RTC has to be successful, and have some key players involved in it to help fuel your regular athletes. And a lot of times it's kind of a split the difference kind of thing for some of those athletes because they'll spend some time focused on their career, right? But they're also going to get some good strong reps with our athletes as well, especially this time of year. You're seeing that a lot of it's just a change of pace when our lightweights come in and
Mhm.
they get to wrestle with Fabian Gutierrez, who's gearing up for the U.S. Open and training for that. Mike Rogers, heavyweight. You talk about the success we've had at heavyweight. It's great to have a guy, a veteran, who may not be next in line for the Olympics, at heavyweight, but he's capable and experienced, and he's a good kind of mentor and look for all of our young heavyweights. So like having guys like that around provides that ancillary benefit to our athletes. But there's also a little bit of, hey, like this is how you win it. Right? Vale
Yep.
Baker, Sophia Macalusa, they're not getting a lot of reps with our guys, not anymore.
Yeah.
It's some drill and stuff like that. But watching an athlete at the highest level has some benefits as well, right? So they're out winning senior titles, making world teams, all those different things that they're doing in their sport are super important because our guys get to see how that lifestyle is lived, how to be a competitor at the highest level. And we're proud of all of them and thankful that we have such a good stable of RTC athletes and coaches that really supplement our program.
Great. And speaking about that a little bit, and you mentioned Lucas Stoddard going down to Mexico for Pan Ams.
Yep.
Obviously, you don't have to run through every kid in the program, but just maybe three or four highlights. What's coming up in the
Sure.
quote unquote off season? What does spring and summer look like for a lot of your athletes, in addition to their military training, obviously?
Yeah, for sure. So what we're doing this year for PIAD, our Army fans will know what that is, but
Yep.
our kind of training camp. The last few years, we've gone down and cross trained with NC State, leading into U23s. We're going to do it a little different this year. We're going to go and train with Cornell. So Spartan
Okay.
RTC is right there. They're not in the EIWA anymore. There's a little less, hey, let's train with these guys that we have to qualify against. So that kind of veil is off. So we can go out there and train with them and train with Yanni, Vito, and all their RTC athletes as
Wow.
well. So a great opportunity for our guys for a little in-state training. And then a good chunk of the team will go to U23s, which is the first weekend in June. We've got some guys that are headed to Vegas, Lucas being one of those guys. Another good guy to highlight in that regard because he's kind of outside of the normal Army fans' view because he's a Greco specialist. But Joe Couch,
Okay.
he'll compete in the U.S. Open. He recently won the Bill Farrell tournament this season,
Oh, nice.
which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Open Greco, senior, his first kind of senior international championship, and in the hopes of him making the world team or getting on the national team, one or the other. So we'll have a buddy, Coach Lamont will be competing out there. He's a multiple time world team member. He's still got the Greco shoes on a little bit. So we'll take a small contingent out to Vegas at the end of the month, and then a bigger contingent to U23s. But you mix those competitions in with just good training for a lot of guys without a competition attached to it. And that should really propel us forward so that we're ready to take the next steps when the fall starts, training wise.
Awesome. And last question, just really give you an opportunity to do some promotion or some
Yeah.
pitching here. I know you guys have a big event coming up in May, the Army Wrestling Gala,
Yep.
um, for some of the donors and some of the other folks. Just talk a little bit about that and a little
Yeah.
bit about that event, what'll be going on, and kind of who it benefits, just to kind of let everybody know why that's an important
100%.
event.
Yeah, I think a lot of coaches get out of college coaching because they don't understand how much of it is fundraising and how much of it is program building. So those types of events have been critical. They've been our lifeblood, both in the aspect of we need to fundraise to have RTC athletes and to go to these tournaments that we're talking about. But we also need to build the community, the ecosystem around Army West Point Wrestling. So being out and getting on the road and doing clinics, and those are the types of things that allow us to have a record crowd on a holiday weekend when we wrestle Navy, which we won 22-10, by the way.
Yep.
Or to do all those things that we want. We want to be like Hudson Valley's hometown team, right? We're already America's
Yep.
team. Everybody knows that. We want to be the hometown team too. We want kids growing up, coming to Mikey and coming to Crystal and watching big events on campus, big time college events. And so we feel like we've started to provide those. And so the gala that you're talking about, it's that first weekend in May. It's a great fundraising dinner. It's a great night out. If nothing else, it's a great night out. It's going to be over at the West Point Club this year. And we kind of mix it in and combine it with our awards, end of the year awards for our guys. So they get, they get all ready up in their full dress over white, which they love. And come,
What's good for the great American public as a cadet? It's probably your least favorite thing in the world.
you got it right. Yeah. So they're coming. The pressure's on all of them right now to find a plus one. We'll see if they can do it. It might be hard. It might be harder for them than some of their wrestling accomplishments, but they're working on it. And then we have a good mix of parents and alumni and local support that come back, and it's just really like a good opportunity to sit down, have a good meal, and recognize what our guys have done, and then just talk about the importance of the club and how that community supports that. There's other events kind of associated with it too on the weekend. People will meet up at the Zulu Lounge Friday night. There's going to be some golf played, I imagine. Not me, but Coach
Nice.
Ward's a big golfer, so he's going to be out there with some of the
You guys always
supporters.
have a really good golf fundraiser in
We
the
do,
fall too.
yeah.
I keep telling myself I'm going to come up for it. I live down in Atlanta, but
September
need to
6th,
need to
September
make a
6th.
flight, come up for the tourney. Yeah.
September 6th, save the date. But yeah, and that the gala kind of rose out of that, right? It's like there's a lot of people who can't make it up in September and or who don't play golf. So they feel like, hey, how can I help? And this is a great opportunity for that. Like everybody likes to eat. So
Exactly.
plan a fundraiser around
Especially
the meal.
wrestlers.
um, and you're in business. So it's really important to us. But more than that, it's really just a fun way to kind of end the season and recognize the guys that deserve so much recognition for what they've done throughout the year.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Coach Green.
Of
Really
course, yeah,
appreciate it. Super excited about the future of Army Wrestling.
yeah, me
Army
too.
fans, this has been Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com, along with Army Wrestling head assistant coach Scott Green saying, Go Army, beat Navy.